Kules, hold on tight, because what we're about to tell you today is a tactical revolution that has transformed Barça's defense into an impregnable fortress. We're in 2025, the sun is scorching Barcelona, the Camp Nou is still under construction, but Hansi Flick, this German who arrived with unshakable determination, has performed a true miracle. When he took over in May 2024, Barça looked like a car with a seized engine, a lot of noise, few results, and a defense more porous than a sieve. But today, this defense has become the terror of opposing attackers. So, how did Flick pull off this feat? Buckle up, because we're diving into the tactical details of this metamorphosis, with that touch of cool humor that characterizes us. Hansi Flick arrived in Barcelona with a clear mission, to fix a team that had defensively become a joke. The 2023-2024 season under Xavi had been a nightmare. Yes, Barça had won La Liga in 2022-2023, but the following year was a disaster without titles, with a Champions League campaign that hurt more than a Ramos tackle and a defense that left more space than Swiss cheese. Opponents were penetrating the Blaugrana box as if they were strolling through a park, and the centre-backs, though talented, seemed to be playing the lottery to see if, on any given day, everything would go well. But Flick isn't the type to sit back and do nothing. "Enough," he declared. And that's how the revolution began. The first thing he did was examine his squad and say, "There's material here, but it needs polishing." He didn't ask for Galactico signings or complain about financial fair play. No, Flick is the kind of person who takes what he has and turns it into gold, like an alchemist in a tracksuit. His philosophy is clear: intensity, order, and above all, a plan. Because if Flick has one quality, it's that he leaves nothing to chance. The high defensive line, Flick's signature. The high defensive line is Flick's signature. This man has raised Barça's defense to levels even the Burj Khalifa elevators can't reach. According to Opta data, Barça plays with a defensive line positioned on average 51.2 meters from their own goal, second only to Manchester City. What does this mean? That the Blaugrana defenders are so high up the pitch they could almost order a coffee in midfield. But it's not just about pushing the line up and hoping for the best. There's brutal tactical work behind it. Flick has turned the offside trap into an art, as if the centre-backs were Renaissance painters crafting the Mona Lisa. In 15 matches, Barça has caught opponents offside 99 times. A staggering number. In the Clásico against Real Madrid, for example, the Blancos fell into the trap 12 times, with Mbappé looking at the referee as if to say, "What is this?" And it's not luck, it's coordination, communication, and timing that seems to come from a Swiss watch. The protagonists of this masterpiece are Pau Cubarsí, Íñigo Martínez, Jules Koundé, and Alejandro Balde, with star appearances from Eric Garcia and, when things get tough, even Ronald Araujo. Cubarsí, this 17-year-old kid who seems to have the mind of a 30-year-old, is the brain of the defense. Flick has turned him into a conductor, marking the line and reading the game as if he had a decade of top-flight experience. Íñigo Martínez, who had arrived at Barça almost like a pariah and was more often on the bench than on the pitch, has risen like a phoenix. His ability to play out from the back is so precise it's as if he has a GPS in his boots, and his character is the glue that holds the defense together. Koundé, who sometimes seemed lost under Xavi, is now a right-back who defends like a centre-back and attacks like a winger. And Balde, who seemed deflated, has rediscovered that spark that made him unstoppable. Flick hasn't just given his players a system, he's given them confidence. And that, Kules, is like giving Red Bull to a bull. How does this advanced defense work? Let's get to the heart of the matter. How does this advanced defense function? Imagine the 4 defenders moving as one, like a boy band in full choreography. Flick has worked on synchronization down to the millimeter. When the opponent attempts a through ball, the defenders step forward in unison, as if they're dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's no coincidence. Flick trains this maneuver with surgical precision, ensuring the centre-back on the ball side sets the line and the others follow like magnets. Additionally, the communication between them is constant, as if they had a WhatsApp group on the pitch. "Hey Pau, push up a bit, Jules, watch out for Vinicius." The result is that opponents find themselves facing an invisible wall that catches them offside again and again. And it's not just about the high line. Flick has also implemented a pressing system after losing the ball that is pure poison. Barça doesn't wait for the opponent to get organized, they hunt for the ball like a starving dog. In 2024 to 2025, The team recovers possession an average of 7.25 times in the final third per game, according to La Liga. This means that when they lose the ball, the Gules get it back quickly, often in the opponent's half. This doesn't just frustrate the opponent, it also gives Barça the chance to counterattack like lightning. Rafinha and LAMINE YAMAL, who aren't just knives in attack, are the first to press as if their lives depend on it. And even Lewandowski, who under Xavi seemed like a grandpa running in slow motion, now moves as if he were 25, though defensively his role is more positional, leaving the dirty work to the wingers. The pressing. Flick's Bayern manual. Let's talk about pressing, because this is where Flick has brought his Bayern manual. This man didn't invent pressing, but he perfected it like a Michelin-starred chef with a signature recipe. Barça's pressing is collective, organized, and above all, intense. It's not that the players run around like headless chickens, it's that they know when and where to apply pressure. Flick has divided the pitch into zones, and each player knows their role. If the opponent tries to play out from the back, Barça closes down the spaces like a swarm of wasps. The midfielders, with Pedri and Frenkie de Jong as the masters of ceremonies, join in this pressing, cutting passing lanes and forcing mistakes. The result? Barça has recovered 481 balls in the opponent's half, leading Europe in this statistic. In this regard, it's as if Flick said, if the ball isn't ours, no one gets to have it. But it's not just about tactics, Gules. Flick has also worked on mentality. This Barça doesn't just defend well, it believes it's the best. Flick has instilled brutal confidence in his players, especially the young ones. Barça, for example, plays with a calmness that almost makes you envious. In the match against Bayern, when Lewandowski and Kane were trying their tricks, there he was, the kid, cutting out passes as if he were picking apples. And it's not just him. Íñigo Martínez, who once seemed like a second-division centre-back, is now a leader who shouts, organizes, and, if necessary, gives an affectionate elbow. This isn't just a defense, it's a statement. And with Flick at the helm, Barça is ready to dominate Europe once again. Another key point is versatility. Flick doesn't stick to just one defensive system, even though the 4-3-3 is his foundation. Sometimes, he switches to a 4-2-3-1, or even a 3-5-2 to add more weight to the midfield. He has also experimented with three centre-backs in tough matches, like against Atletico, where he lined up Eric Garcia alongside Barça and Íñigo to shut down the centre. This flexibility allows Barça to adapt to the opponent without losing its identity. Because let's be honest, Flick's Barça isn't Guardiola's Barça, which dazzled opponents with 1,000 passes. This Barça is more direct, more vertical, but no less cool. Flick has taken the club's DNA and given it an adrenaline boost, like putting a V8 engine on a bicycle. The goalkeeper, Peña's transformation. We can't talk about the defense without mentioning the goalkeeper. Iñaki Peña, who started the season with more doubts than a student in a quantum physics exam, has earned his place through hard work. Flick trusted him, even when rumors swirled about Ter Stegen. Peña isn't Ter Stegen at his peak, but he has improved in his distribution, reflexes, and, above all, confidence. Flick gave him a clear role, be the first pass of the defense, almost like a libero from past years. And when he had to make saves, he made them. In the Clásico, for example, he pulled off 2 saves that left Mbappé looking like he couldn't believe it, not even on FIFA. The risks of Flick's system. But not everything is perfect, Gules. Flick's defense has its risks. Playing with such a high line is like juggling torches. If it works, it's spectacular. If it fails, you get burned. There have been matches, like against Valencia, where a lapse in concentration left the centre-backs exposed, and the opponent scored easily. The key is to minimize these errors, and Flick knows it. That's why he insists so much in training, where players repeat movements until they can do them in their sleep. Additionally, the lack of a reliable left-back is an issue. Bald isn't always at 100%, and Araujo's injuries have been a headache. But Flick doesn't complain. He takes what he has and makes it work like a football MIER, a Spanish acronym for a highly efficient system. If we compare, Flick's Barça defense is like an upgraded version of Bayern's 2020 team, the one that crushed everything in its path in the Champions League. But there's a nuance. At Bayern, Flick had Alaba and Boateng, 2 elite centre-backs, and a budget to sign whoever he wanted. At Barça, with emptier coffers than a student's fridge, he had to turn to La Masia and players who were on the chopping block. And yet, the result is brutal. The numbers don't lie. Barça is top of La Liga with 33 points in 12 matches, has conceded only 29 goals in 31 league games, and in the Champions League, it has left rivals like Bayern and Benfica looking like they've been hit by a poker face. This isn't luck, it's hard work. Let's talk numbers, because we Kules love to show off. Flick's Barça is the team that triggers the most offsides in Europe's top 5 leagues, with 289 this season, according to Opta. It's also the team that recovers the most balls in the opponent's half, 481, and scores the most goals after a high recovery, 15. These numbers don't lie. The defense doesn't just defend, it's the first step of the attack. It's as if Flick said, "Guys, if we defend well, we attack better." And it works. The team attempts an average of 17.4 shots per game, the highest in La Liga, and has scored 147 goals in all competitions. It's a steamroller, Kules. The human factor, Flick's leadership. But beyond the numbers, what's impressive is this sense of control. This Barça doesn't fall apart, doesn't give up, doesn't back down. In Dortmund, when Borussia turned up the heat in the Champions League quarterfinals, Barça knew how to suffer, stay calm, and pull out the result. It's a team that competes, bites, and gives nothing away, and that's largely thanks to the defense. Flick has transformed a group of talented but disorganized players into a unit that functions like clockwork. And it's not just tactics, it's a mentality. Flick has made his players believe they're invincible, and in football, that's already half the battle. Flick's impact on the youth. Another fascinating detail is Flick's impact on the young players. Barça, at just 17 years old, is an undisputed starter, not because there are no other options, but because he's earned it. LAMINE Yamal, who also defends like a demon, is another example. Flick doesn't just give them minutes, he gives them responsibility. And they deliver, as if Flick has a superpower for motivating players, like a motivational coach with a tactical whiteboard. The Barça family. We can't forget the human factor. Flick isn't just a tactician, he's a leader. He has changed the dynamics in the dressing room, imposing discipline but also closeness. Players arrive 90 minutes before training, eat together, weigh themselves daily, and even wear the official club tracksuit. No more fashion shows. Here, everyone is Barça, period. This team mentality has taken root. Players like Rafinha, who seemed disconnected, are now leaders. PEDRI, who was living between injuries, is the engine of the team, and Lewandowski, who seemed finished, scores goals like he's in a penalty shootout. Flick has created a family, and it shows on the pitch. Conclusion: Flick's masterpiece. In summary, Kules, what Flick has done with Barça's defense is a mix of tactics, discipline, and confidence. He has raised the defensive line to the midfield, turned the offside trap into a lethal weapon, implemented a pressure system that suffocates opponents, and given his players the mentality of champions. It's not magic, it's hard work. It's not luck, it's strategy. It's not coincidence, it's Flick. This Barça doesn't just defend, it intimidates. And if that doesn't make you want to rub your hands together in excitement, let Cruyff come down from heaven to see it. So, Kules, let's keep enjoying this team. The best is yet to come. The Camp Nou roars on. We'll continue in the same vein with the Camp Nou buzzing in our heads and Hansi Flick as the architect of a Barça that, defensively, leaves everyone speechless. Let's dive even deeper into the inner workings of this team, analyzing the details that make this defense stronger than a bunker, but without losing that cool touch that makes us sigh. Because even though we've already talked about the high line, suffocating pressure, and steel mentality, there's still so much more to uncover in Flick's system. It's like opening a Matryoshka doll. Each layer reveals something new. And here, we'll explore it all, with one eye on the pitch and the other on the cool humor we love so much. One of the challenges is facing teams that park the bus, those classic defensive setups that have caused Barça so much suffering in the past. Against this type of opponent like Getafe or Cádiz, Flick has designed a specific plan. The defense doesn't just wait, it actively participates in the attack. Kound and Bald push up like wingers, creating numerical superiority on the flanks. Meanwhile, Barça and Íñigo advance to offer passing options, breaking the opponent's pressure. This allows Barça to maintain possession in the opponent's half, wearing them down until a gap opens. In the match against Getafe, Barça had 78% possession in the opponent's half, something unthinkable a few seasons ago. Another fascinating detail is how Flick has worked on his defenders' concentration. In football, a single second of inattention can cost a goal, and the old Barça was an expert in these nap moments. Flick has eliminated that through discipline and repetition. During training, players do high-intensity drills where they must maintain focus for endless minutes, as if they were playing an entire match in 10 square meters. This translates onto the pitch, where defenders are always alert like hawks watching their prey. In the match against PSG, for example, Barça kept a clean sheet despite 19 shots from the Parisians, simply because no one dozed off for even a second. Barça, with his studious demeanor, was everywhere, cutting, blocking, and even encouraging his teammates. Let's also talk about Flick's impact on aerial duels, a historic weak point for Barça. Before, any team with a tall striker and a good crosser made us tremble. Flick, who comes from a football culture where aerial play is daily bread, has changed that. He has worked with his center-backs on positioning during corners, teaching them not to jump recklessly but to calculate the exact moment. Íñigo Martínez, who was already strong in this area, is now an aerial wall, winning 82% of his duels according to Opta. But the surprise comes from Barça, who, despite his modest height, 1.82 m, has learned to use his body to win positioning. In the match against Atletico, a team that thrives on crosses, Barça and Íñigo devoured Inaki Williams and Burazita in the air as if they were two eagles on the hunt. We can't forget the role of the wingers in defensive set pieces. Rafinha and LAMINE, in addition to their offensive prowess, have a clear mission during opponent corners and free kicks: block the players looking for a shot. Flick has taught them to position themselves in the hot zone of the box, where attackers like to jump. This not only reduces danger but also frees up the center-backs to focus on key duels. In the match against Benfica, Rafinha blocked 2 players during a corner, allowing Íñigo to clear the ball without issue. Another aspect that shines in Flick's system is his ability to adapt to opponents without losing identity. Against teams like Manchester City, who play with a false 9, Flick lowers the defensive line slightly to prevent offensive midfielders from slipping behind. Against physical teams like Atletico, he increases the pressure to force errors in their build-up. And against fast rivals like Real Madrid, he uses a mix of high pressing and selective dropping to avoid leaving space for counters. This versatility is like having a wardrobe full of tailored suits. Flick always finds the one that fits the match best. In the Supercopa against Real Madrid, for example, Barça alternated between a high line and a mid-block, disorienting the Blancos until they didn't know where to attack. One of the least discussed secrets of Flick's defense is how he has optimized the use of space between the lines. In modern football, teams look to exploit gaps between defense and midfield, those no-man's lands where offensive midfielders and wingers slip through like thieves in the night. But Flick, who seems to have studied every centimeter of the pitch, has locked these doors tight. He does it with a system of dynamic cover that resembles a ballet choreography, just with fewer tutus and more tackles. When an opponent tries to slip between the lines, the defensive midfielders like Marc Casado or even a positional Frenkie de Jong stick to the attacker like a shadow. Meanwhile, the center-backs, led by Pau Barça, adjust their positioning to leave no space behind. It's as if Barça has a radar detecting any suspicious movement. In the match against Liverpool in the Champions League group stage, for example, Sulla tried to slip through these gaps 15 times, and in 13 cases, he found a cue telling him, "You're not getting through here, my friend." This control of space isn't just about positioning, it's also about timing. Flick has worked with his players to know exactly when to step back or when to press. For example, when the opponent has the ball in midfield, Barça's defenders don't stay static like statues. They constantly adjust their position based on the direction of the pass. If the ball goes right, Kound moves up a few meters to close the lane, while Barça covers the center and Bald prepares for a potential switch of play. This constant movement makes Barça unpredictable for opponents, who never know if they'll find a gap or a trap. If this gives you chills, don't stay out of the loop. Subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning, and what's coming will be pure Blaugrana fire. Because Flick hasn't just changed the way we defend, he's changed the way Barça faces challenges.